It was ugly, unpredictable, and absolutely perfect. The Heat shot badly, didn't get a strong performance from Jimmy Butler, and watched as Jalen Brunson dominated Game 6, but they did just enough to send the Knicks home. Miami was minutes away from being eliminated in the play-in tournament and then clawed and fought their way to the Eastern Conference Finals, making history in the process. We break it all down today's playoff edition of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil, recording this right after the Miami Heat's Game 6 win over the New York Knicks. They win this game 96-92 to close the Knicks out, end the series at home. They're going to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. So much to get to, not just from this game, David, but from this series. I want to even talk about the season and just how unprecedented this is. The stat that's been going around is that this is the second number 8 seed of all time to make it all the way to a conference finals. And I have an issue with that stat because it's not completely accurate, because the first team that did it, the 1999 Knicks, were an A seed, sure, but in a lockout season where there was few games separating the A seed from even the number 1 seed. And so to me, this accomplishment, for whatever it's worth, to me stands alone. I think it's a different kind of thing versus that Knicks team. And this is not supposed to be some sort of anti-Knicks thing. It just so happened that was a Knicks team. That was the 8th seed. Right. This is different. This is through the first 8th seed ever to go through a full-scale regular season, not a lockout season, play in a play-in tournament, so play 2 extra games just to get into the playoffs, right? They beat the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, and they play a very hard series against the New York Knicks. And now we're going to await Sunday's Game 7 between the Sixers and the Celtics to see who it is that the Heat are going to play in these Eastern Conference Finals. These Miami Heat, Conference Finals, 3rd time in 4 seasons, a chance to play for the championship round. What do you think?
I think it's incredible. To your point about the Knicks in that season in 1999-2000, they only wound up playing 50 games, and so they were the 8th seed. As a result, who knows if they had played the full 32 games after that, if that had been a regular season, a regular season, I should say, sure, maybe things would have evened out. They were obviously a very talented team. They started off that season with injury, and they were a little sluggish to start off. That was with Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnson, et cetera. Nobody really needs to go down that particular road in history here. But as far as Miami, it's a great point. They played 82 games, struggled through the adversity of a long 82-game season, wound up playing those 2 play-in tournament games, and now are on the precipice of going into the Eastern. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're on the precipice of going to the NBA Finals, perhaps. That's a step down the road. But the history that this team has made, to be able to face the adversity that they have. We talked in the last win they had in Game 4 about being primed for these moments, the physicality of this series, based on the fact that they'd gone through all these ups and downs over the course of the regular season. They were ready for this. They accepted the challenges, and they faced a great Knicks team, a very physical Knicks team. I know it's fun for Heat fans, and I'm not going to police anybody how they fan, to criticize players like Randall and Brunson and anybody else, Josh Hart, whomever. But this is still a very good Knicks team. Hats off to them for a very tough physical series, and yet Miami somehow responded better. They were losing this game by 15 points, and at that same point, I was thinking to myself, Miami was still playing a better brand of basketball despite the deficit. New York was just getting some key shots to fall in. They were getting some good officiating in their favor. I don't want to make that a talking point, as so many have over the course of the day.
I'll do it.
But Miami was able to take it on and continue to find a way to persevere through the win.
They found the way that they've been finding basically all series in these wins. They have been shooting well from 3-point range the entire series. The fact that they shot 26% from 3-point range tonight, 7-27 overall, should be the least surprising thing that's happened this entire series. They have not been able to make a shot from 3-point range, but they got back to the formula that was leading them to wins. Despite the lack of 3-point shooting, they were narrowing the rebound margin. They actually had one more rebound. The Knicks only had one more rebound than the Heat did tonight. That's right where you want it to be if you're the Heat. You're not going to win against the Knicks, the rebounding battle, very much. You want to keep turnovers low. They did. The Knicks had 12. The Heat had just 7. They played a clean game of basketball. They created extra possessions with the offensive rebounds. They had 7 of them with the limiting the turnovers and then creating turnovers. So Miami took 82 shots in this game compared to the Knicks taking 71 shots. There's your formula. That's it. That's how the Heat have won every game in this series. Not from three-point range, not from necessarily scoring a whole bunch of points. I love that this final game was 96-92, not quite 1997, 1998 Knicks Heat, but kind of close to it. Kind of felt like it for a lot of stretches of the series.
Yeah, it's really hard to parse anything. Look, again, we're filming this minutes here. Just the chaos of everything, because even in the last couple of minutes of the game, after Miami had a 6-point lead and looked like it was comfortable, then all of a sudden they cut it to less than that with that Jalen Brunson flagrant foul call on Gabe Vincent.
Gabe. Yeah, it was a 4-point possession.
4-point possession changed the complexity right away, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, does Miami have enough?" They did. But yeah, to your point about the Knicks series of the past, this was very, very similar to that. Very physical. Both teams matched intensity.
Can I do one last point on the historic part of this?
Absolutely.
We were talking about how those 2 8 seeds are different. The difference between the 8th seed and the number 1 seed in 1999 when the Knicks beat the I think that was the rest of Jimmy Butler's ankle.
Nice.
The difference in wins between the 8th seed and the 1 seed the year the Knicks were the 8th seed and got it to the conference finals was 6 games. The difference this year was 14 wins. Yeah. That was the difference in record. So I think that's just to put everything into perspective and just how dramatic of a turnaround this has been for these Miami Heat.
There's one statistic that stands out to me: 25 assists for the Miami Heat compared to just 13 for the New York Knicks. A lot of iso ball, specifically with Jalen Brunson, who was incredible.
Yeah,
you can't say enough about his performance.
Unbelievable.
Go tune into Locked On Knicks, however. Very, very good game from him, and yet Miami got a group effort, doing a fantastic job. Kyle Lowry stepping up, Jimmy Butler doing just enough. Bam Adebayo, the unsung hero. I don't know that anybody's really going to point to his statistical output and say, "Whoa, what a monster game!" But the job he did on Julius Randle defensively, coming up with big blocks, deflections late in the game. One in particular against Randle, if I'm not mistaken, to get that shot deflected, force a turnover, lead to a fast break opportunity for Miami, and that's it. Because it's like you have to do whatever's necessary in order to generate points. In a game like this, a 5-point swing could be absolutely the end of the game and the series, you know?
There wasn't like a shot that was like the biggest play of this game. There was no Jimmy Butler moment. There was no big 3 by Max Strus or Duncan Robinson at the end that served as the dagger in this game. The fact that the Heat won this game by 4 points, they kind of just like barely did that, you know, and it never really felt like this game was over until it was over, until Gabe Vincent was dribbling out the final seconds of the clock. The biggest plays in that fourth quarter. So just quick recap here. The Heat trailed the Knicks 31-24 in the first quarter. They went into a 14-point hole in that first quarter. Second quarter, they come back. They outscore the Knicks 27-19 in that second quarter. They lead at halftime by 1 point, 51-50. Third quarter, back and forth, ton of foul calls in the mud, ugly third quarter. The fourth quarter was like, hold my beer. I'm going to be even uglier than you third quarter. And it was even worse. The biggest plays of the game in that fourth quarter was a Kyle Lowry layup through traffic where he fell to the floor.
That was amazing.
On the next possession, gets a steal from RJ Barrett, who was awful for the Knicks. He actually got benched at the end of this game, and it was shortly after getting stolen from.
He was also in foul trouble, so maybe lack of rhythm there, but he did struggle whenever he was on the floor.
And then Bam Adebayo, a huge defensive rebound in traffic with one arm. Those are the biggest plays of the fourth quarter, David. Only one of those is a score, and it's just sort of Kyle Lowry flipping up a layup that he had no business kind of making. Yeah. It went like over Isaiah Hartenstein, I think it was. Like it was a great layup. It was a great Kyle Lowry game. I know we'll talk about him when we get to credit cookies, but the fact that those are the biggest plays in this game, and very few of those plays were just actually scoring points, I think says a lot about how this game and how this series was played overall. I want to get to your point about the assists. 25 assists on 33 made field goals, just 7 turnovers for the Heat. I said this on Locked On NBA after the Nuggets closed out their series against the Suns on Thursday night. I was so impressed with the Nuggets because they just came in. They weren't super aggressive. They weren't trying to get Jokic involved or have a big 40-point night for Jamal Murray to just kind of lay the hammer on Phoenix. No, they just came in. They played their game. They played it clean. They executed their game plan, and they just did it way better than Phoenix did it. And it reminds me of what happened here with Miami tonight. They just came in. everybody was wondering, are we going to get a big playoff Jimmy performance? Are we going to get a big Bam Adebayo performance? Are they going to rain it from 3-point range and close the series? And the answer to all that was no. They just came in and executed the game plan and did the little things. They got the 50-50 balls. They just played harder when they made the plays when it mattered most. And a lot of those plays I already outlined. One last point on this. Jimmy Butler, 22 field goal attempts. Bam Adebayo, 20 field goal attempts. They were not efficient. Jimmy Butler went 7 of 22. Bam went 9 of 20. But both of them scored 24 points and 23 points. Like you said, not monster performances. But I thought it was monster-ish in the fact that they just got up 22 field goal attempts for Jimmy and 20 for Bam, given how much the Knicks were keyed in on those two guys. Obviously, they're sending the doubles to Jimmy, but really packing the paint against Bam as well. The fact that they muscled up 42 combined shots, I thought, was really impressive.
Yeah, Bam's in particular, he was slightly more effective than Jimmy, and it felt like he was fighting more. It's hard to quantify exactly. Jimmy was a lot of pull-up jumpers. You could tell he wasn't at 100%.
Yeah.
Again, something we'll talk about a little bit later on, and we'll talk about as they continue to get a couple of days rest in between now and the Eastern Conference Finals. It is a big factor.
Yeah.
Like Jimmy will be able to recover, and hopefully they'll be able to get a shade of him, what we saw against the Milwaukee Bucks before the injury.
And just 41 minutes for him tonight. And I say just in quotes. Exactly.
All the entire second half.
But but was able to get 6 or 7 minutes of rest in that second quarter when the Heat they had Bam Adebayo. They got rid of that full bench unit in the beginning of the second quarter. They had Bam in there while Jimmy wasn't in there. And that group is the group that actually took the lead from the Knicks and ended up kind of pushing that lead. So that was huge to buy him those minutes. Yeah, these days of rest are going to be huge. This was as close, and we said this was as close to a game 7 as it would get without actually being a game 7. Let's move on to credit cookies really quick. We already talked about Jimmy and Bam. We got 10 credit cookies to hand out. Jimmy, Bam, I think should get 3 each.
3 apiece, maybe even 4 for Bam. His game was really, really impactful, and I asked him about his defense on Julius Randle, kind of deflected it a little bit. But just I think the effectiveness with which he was guarding Randle, who went just 3 of 14.
Oh, he was awful.
And Bam said he just kind of forced him into tough shots.
Made as many field goals as he had turnovers. Julius Randle did. A lot of it was Bam.
Yeah, he looked uncomfortable. And I haven't even checked social media. I'm sure Knicks fans are kind of roasting Randle. I think he was trying, and in the first half in particular, it seemed like he was a little bit more engaged, played some good defense, pulled down a couple of rebounds. Yeah.
Am I wrong? Did he have all 15 points in the first quarter?
It did seem that way. Let me take a quick look here while I enjoy this, because I think
RJ Barrett finished with 11. I think 8 of those were in the first quarter.
Yeah. Oh no, Brunson had 15. Barrett had 8. Randle had 5.
Okay, that's what I thought. It was Brunson had 15.
He got some free throws in the third quarter, I think is what it was basically. But he was 0 points in the second. He doesn't play much in the second period.
Brunson didn't get the help at the end of the day. Like, he needed a full sustained effort from Julius Randle, and he didn't get it. RJ Barrett was awful in that second half, just terrible.
Yeah, and in the third quarter, Randle hit a 3, and he had 5 free throw attempts as well. So that's why he got to his 8 points to bring up to his total.
So the Bam gets a lot of credit for his defense on him. So I'm okay. Amazing. If you want to do. Let's talk Kyle Lowry next. 11 points off the bench, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 of which were offensive rebounds. 3 steals in the game, a blocked shot, and he did all this while turning the ball over just 1 time in his 31 minutes. This Kyle Lowry is such a game changer for the Miami Heat. He is as much a reason, after you get past Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra and Bam Adebayo, and maybe pretty close to Bam at this point, as much a reason why the Heat are going to the Eastern Conference Finals for the 3rd time in 4 seasons as anybody else on this roster, beyond those people I already said. He has been awesome, and the entire plan, the maintenance program for the last 2 months of the season has absolutely worked. There's no question about it. He looks awesome. This is like vintage Toronto Raptors Kyle Lowry, almost on a nightly basis in this series, and he's just making those plays now, those layups. Like, we just weren't seeing that in January and February in the regular season. He's making those layups. He's getting those turnaround jumpers, those mid-range kind of fadeaway jumpers that he likes to hit. He's pulling up confidently into 3-pointers. And he's making these plays defensively where there was a portion in that regular season where I thought he was a weakness on defense. Like, teams were targeting him, and that's not the case anymore. His quick hands are back. Yeah. He's moving laterally, getting in front of guys, staying between his guy and the basket better than ever. He's awesome.
He cannot pick up guards, especially quick guards or physical guards, the way Brunson was. And that's something to consider if they advance, when they advance, excuse me, depending on which team advances.
Yes.
His matchup against Smart, I think, will be evened out. Brogdon, I think he can handle that one a little well.
I'm not worried about any of the Celtics guards.
Tyrese Maxey.
That would be a problem for a lot.
That's a Caleb.
Also,
matchup.
Tyrese Maxey is a problem for everybody when he's going. But yeah.
No doubt. That's a Gabe picking him up 94 feet, similar to what we saw with Brunson, with Caleb coming in occasionally. But tonight, Gabe struggled a little bit. He was in foul trouble early on because of some ticky-tack calls in Brunson's favor. It's a tough matchup. Lowry came in, made his imprint on the game. And I asked him about it, how rewarding this is to be able to impact this game after the injury. And he was just complimenting his teammates, complimenting the coaching staff, putting him in a position to win, making that impact, though. He spoke of it. Everything. Like the fact that he can guard 2 through 5, no longer guarding those quick point guards. Although he did have some matchups here and there, but the quick hands, he limited Josh Hart, just knows how to position himself. Knicks fans will want to call it dirty. It doesn't matter at this point. Right now, Lowry was just effective.
Kyle Lowry gets away with it, man. I'm not going to sit here and say Kyle Lowry doesn't get away with stuff. Kyle Lowry's made a career out of getting away with stuff. He gets away with stuff. Good for him. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame because he's getting away with a lot of stuff.
It's the IQ.
He figures it out,
it's
man.
The IQ.
That's why I don't want to talk about the officiating or Scott Foster or anything, just because the Heat.
Oh boy, Scott Foster, huh?
They got away. The Heat have guys who do stuff too. The Heat like to sell contact. The Knicks like to sell contact.
There's 29 other teams.
It's two Spider-Man memes pointing at each other. I don't want to do this.
That's the league.
Anyway, all right. So we've got those credit cookies. I want to hold one credit cookie. I want to give it to Eric Spoelstra. He coached a masterful series. This was an ugly series. A series like this is very, very difficult to coach in because there's no obvious big tweaks, right? There's no huge lineup change that you can make the way that we're seeing in the Lakers-Warriors series. There's not any major things that you could do in terms of your schemes. It's basically Jalen Brunson doing Jalen Brunson things for the Knicks and the Heat doing Miami Heat things. And it's just, and it comes, and I asked Bam about this Friday morning after shoot-around. I said, is this kind of the point where there's no more big schematic changes? Right. He's like, it's kind of been that way the entire series. It's just been kind of like who wants it more, 50-50 right. ball in the air, ball on the floor. That's what he kept saying. And it felt like that. However, the big changes, the lineup changes, we're going to switch the pick and roll, we're going to do all that kind of, that's the stuff that gets traction on the internet and the stuff that gets talked about on national shows and stuff. But the little things that Spo did throughout the series, hack a Mitchell Robinson here, doubling Jalen Brunson at certain times, throwing in a zone concept here and there, picking up full court over the last 2 or 3 games with Gabe Vincent. And then today, just another thing that he just threw out there. On inbounds after a make shot, we're going to double Jalen Brunson on the inbound so he can't get the ball. Just like a little thing. I don't know if that bothered him. It doesn't look like it bothered him based on the stat line, but just another thing that Spo was just – he just emptied the kitchen sink on this series, and I think a lot of credit goes to that. I think it imbues a lot of confidence into his players, thinking that, okay, every game we feel like we have the better game plan, and so there's a level of confidence that comes with that. Yeah. And I do think that the team that made the most plays down the stretch, in this case the Miami Heat, is usually the team that kind of has that confidence. They feel like they're doing the right things, where I had some questions about what it is that Tom Thibodeau did. Again, that's probably more of a conversation for Locked On Knicks, but I think Spo outcoached Thibodeau in this series.
That's pretty clear.
And I think he deserves a cookie.
No, I agree 100%. Aside from the schematic things, just being able to juggle rotations, those things do matter. Keeping the temperament of the team positive, knowing that this series is going to be so physical, knowing that your best player is limited and having to deal without him in game 2. I think that response from the Heat going heavy zone that whole game to compensate for the loss of Jimmy Butler was a nice move by him. Yeah. It turned out to be a loss. Doesn't matter. I think there's something to the fact that Eric Spoelstra doesn't get shaken in these moments, that he is
it's the opposite of shaken. He's
so comfortable. He's been here before. He knows exactly what to do.
He
doesn't get
crazy.
Fazed by this.
This is what he lives for, man. This is his drug. You can see it.
We were there when he was post game. He asked if the all NBA teams have even come out. For those listeners and viewers that aren't familiar, they came out a couple of days ago.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So he's completely removed from everything else. He's
talking about Jalen Brunson, how he should make it.
And he was wondering,
did he make it? And then he's like, did any of our guys make it? And everybody's like, yeah, Jimmy made second team. He's
like, buy it?
Okay. No.
I don't buy it either.
I don't buy it either. What was in his cup, though? He came into the post-game press conference with a styrofoam cup, one of those ones that you see in every single office.
You would know, I'm guessing a whiskey.
No, he is a wine guy.
He's not drinking wine out of a foam cup, man.
Well, he's not going to walk in with
a goblet,
a glass. Like, where's that wine glass coming from? So I thought, my initial thought was that he dumped a Bud Light in there or something, right?
Oh.
But he's a wine guy. Could have been. He might have had a bottle of wine in the office somewhere.
Okay.
He did not disclose. He was asked by was Tim Reynolds.
Tim Reynolds, yeah.
Asked him. He did not disclose it, which is how you know
observations there.
It wasn't watered down Gatorade. Safe to say. Can we get to some of our listener questions?
Yeah, let's do it. Again, fantastic game, and thanks to everybody who stuck around and didn't lose faith after that tough Game 5 loss. Let's see. This question comes in from EJ Brewski. Where should we hold a championship parade? Biscayne Boulevard? Well, yeah, that's pretty planned out. I don't think that we really need to map out the parade.
We'll hold off on that.
It's a little early for all.
Have a good weekend, EJ. Yeah, party on.
How thankful are you that the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be on TNT so we don't have to deal with that train wreck ESPN calls their pregame and halftime shows?
I don't know, because we're here for the home games. I don't know that I'll say the TNT. I'm glad to know that, like, the TNT I'm not disparaging the ESPN broadcast. The TNT broadcast is awesome, and you're getting Ernie, you're getting Chuck, you're getting Shaq. I mean, that's great. So yeah, very happy about the TNT broadcast.
We can't get any weather reports, I think, moving forward.
Right, that's true.
Either Boston or Philadelphia is going to be able to handle the weather a little bit better than New York, I think. This one comes in from Snickers. Can Tyler Herro return for the Eastern Conference?
Jerry.
Jerry R. Lewis. I don't know. Maybe I guess you're right. Jerry R. Lewis. Can Tyler Herro return to the Eastern Conference Finals and make a difference? So the time frame for him is currently 4 to 6 weeks. I think everybody has speculated that Game 4 would be midway through the Eastern Conference Finals. May 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, is the date that I've seen. So perhaps whatever soft cast he's currently wearing would come off.
Maybe if it goes to a Game 7, he can get out there. The problem is that it's a shooting hand, right?
Yeah.
So we have seen recent posted by him Instagram photos where the cast is off, and he still has like a wrap and maybe like a little bit of a brace on his hand. I don't think that the Heat can count on an Eastern Conference return by Tyler Herro. But man, like him talking about his return after breaking the hand initially in Milwaukee. And being like, it's all right, I'll be back for the NBA Finals, and then everybody kind of laughing at him, like, including me. I was like, all right, man, like I love the confidence. I love the confidence.
I remember.
And
it was Game 1. That series feels like an eternity ago.
I know these playoffs are long. All the playoffs are long.
It's like, great, thanks for the finals prognosis. It's not going to matter because you probably get wiped out by Milwaukee. And here we are.
I think the important thing is, exactly that. That seemed like a foregone conclusion that Tyler Herro was going to play his last game for the Miami Heat this season, and that you could start looking forward to maybe a long offseason for him and getting back to be ready for the regular season, whatever. And he was going to be.
Yeah.
But this now, I'm not ready to say it's a factor because we're far away from it being a factor, right? But it is starting to almost become a factor. It's an impossibility to now a remote possibility. So that's progress.
All right. Glad we got to win, writes in Damian Heedles, but something still looks off with Jimmy, even if I'm wrong. Yeah. Glad he'll get 4 days off. Am I overthinking this?
No. Jimmy Butler was in the locker room limping around. He is clearly bothered by this ankle. I think there's a big reason why his effectiveness has been limited. Shout out to Quentin Grimes, who did an awesome job. He changed the series. He absolutely changed the series when he came in, got healthy, and started guarding Jimmy Butler the last 3 games. I don't know. I don't know why Quentin Grimes wasn't in at the end of that game. It's again like a Tibbs thing. It's like, all right, that's another reason why Spo ended up out coaching Tibbs in this series. But beyond the Quentin Grimes thing, and I do want to give credit to him because he was great defensively on Jimmy, but he was obviously very bothered. And like I said, walking into that locker room and seeing him limping around, it's clearly bothering him. So the fact that he is going to get multiple days off now, I don't think that Damian is overthinking this. I think that's huge. No,
I think it's clear that he is hindered by it. Did not seem aggressive, and you don't want to criticize Jimmy considering the fact that he was playing through his injury in the first place, and he was still largely effective, particularly on defense, picking up the bigger Randall, whoever it was. Doing
he would get switched on to Jalen Brunson and did a good job. Like
yes,
he picked the spots offensively. Like he had a couple of fadeaway jumpers, got to the free throw line, got
shots
to the basket.
Hit,
yeah, he missed some shots otherwise that he would have hit too. But look, Jimmy Butler is the key to everything. If you're not getting something closer to what we saw against Milwaukee versus what we saw the last couple of games against the Knicks, I don't know that the Heat have much of a chance in the next round, regardless of who they play. I don't think that's a hot take at all. So buying as much,
well,
this is
maybe
why
that's an interesting question. Do they have to rely on playoff Jimmy as much in the next series, considering they were able to eliminate the Knicks without playoff Jimmy?
They need playoff Jimmy to beat the Celtics and the Sixers. Both those teams are way better than the Knicks.
And after 4 days of rest, how close do you think he is to approximating playoff Jimmy? Hard to say without any kind of medical. Yeah, because he's played, and he's played a considerable amount of time. 42 minutes today, 43 minutes the last game. He's been going through it. He's been trying to step up despite the injury, and it's hindered him. And yet, I don't know.
And the Knicks were double teaming him a lot. They had specific guys who can defend him, like Grimes and Josh Hart and things like that. So, like, I think that
who
the
defends
Knicks
him
are
in
not
Philadelphia? Who defends him in Philadelphia?
That's kind of the point.
PJ Tucker?
It's maybe PJ.
Tobias Harris.
Boston has a few guys that they could throw at him. I guess it would be Jaylen Brown, a little bit of Jason Tatum. Both of those guys are very good defensively. But I don't know that they're going to double Jimmy Butler so aggressively. And I think for the purpose of this conversation, Jimmy was asked after the game today, like, about being doubled so aggressively by the Knicks, and he said, "Look, if I get doubled like that in the next series, I'm just going to keep being a facilitator." So he's comfortable doing that. He feels like he's making the right basketball plays. We'll see. Of course, we'll see.
4 assists for him on tonight. One more question.
Yeah,
this last one comes in from Jeff Daniel. Who are you guys more worried about this Eastern Conference Finals? Philly or Boston? Do you have a team that you're more worried about?
I don't know, man. I'm not. Boston is more talented.
Yeah, Boston is the better team, I would say, and yet here they are.
They can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, they've fallen apart late in games. Their late game execution, Joe Mazzulla's coaching, and then the things that Spoelstra has done so effectively, Mazzulla has not.
Their coach circles around.
I think that's a big fact. Well, I mean, he would probably coach circles around Doc Rivers as well. I mean, he is the best coach left in the playoffs.
Yeah, he would coach circles around Doc, but he would coach more circles around Joe Mazzulla.
That's fair. I mean, the kind of in-game adjustments he's learning on the fly. This is the first time he's ever done it.
I mean,
and they're a really, really good Jason Tatum late fourth quarter in Game 6 away from being eliminated. He had his big moments down the stretch there. So I don't know. It's tough to say. Again, I think Boston would probably gear themselves up more for a matchup against Miami. I think there's a little personal history there. They've faced each other in the Eastern Conference Finals twice already.
The Celtics at least have that confidence at least available to be like, we just beat this team in the conference finals last year. And they have home court this time where they didn't have home court last time. So Philly does not have that. But James Harden and Joel Embiid are way better together now than they were last season. Joel Embiid looks very healthy now. And remember, he had, what was it? The face thing, the face contusion going into the second round series last year. So that's a difference maker for sure.
He has a knee.
I don't know. I switched my opinion on Philly and Boston. I've watched that series very closely for obvious reasons. I switched my opinion on both of those teams after every game, man. Like I don't feel good about the Celtics even after them winning that game. Yep. I don't think
they could lose Game 7 at home.
I think both of those teams are more talented than the Miami.
That's been pretty clear all season, but so was the Milwaukee Bucks.
I think the Heat are more mentally.
You could argue the Knicks are more talented too.
I think the Knicks were more. I think the Knicks were more talented. I don't think that's a hot take.
No, it's not. The point is, though, I think both Boston and Philadelphia are technically more dangerous than this Miami team, but I'm not about to count them out. And here they are.
No, I'm not counting them out. The Heat are more mentally tough, and we've seen how much that matters.
It does. It does. This is an odd postseason with so much parity. Top seeds dropping out, other teams pulling off the upset. Like, it's just very peculiar. In the West, it looks like Denver probably has a clear path, but even that doesn't seem as clear with the Lakers and Warriors currently fighting it out right now.
I like the Nuggets in the West, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me if it was the Warriors or the Lakers that came out of the conference either. I would bet, if I had to bet $1, I'd bet on the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Who are you going to be rooting for in Game 7, Philly-Boston?
Oh, I've said it before. I think just a chance to beat Boston or to at least compete against Boston and potentially beat them, it far outweighs the ability to beat Philadelphia fans. Although Philadelphia fans were also pretty toxic last season. I like the matchup between Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Joel Embiid, James Harden. I think those are bigger.
The Jimmy Butler versus Philly thing was a lot of fun last year. It would be a lot of fun.
I'm kind of tired of the Celtics a little bit, to be honest with you. I mean, between the bubble, between last year. It's taken its toll on me.
It would be a cool rivalry to just have them meet again. Like that's a great storyline, and in terms of rivalries and all that kind of stuff.
I just don't want to hear how much better their roster is than Miami.
Well, I don't want to hear from John Corrales in general. I don't want to do any crossovers with him. That would be a nightmare. But
we'll be doing a crossover with John Corrales if they advance.
You will. No, I
don't want to hear that Jimmy Butler is like the 4th best player in the series.
He's like Malcolm Brogdon's had a good year.
6th man of the year. I mean, he's up there. Marcus Smart, best defender.
For those who don't remember last year, Corrales got on our show and said that Jimmy Butler was the 3rd best player in that series behind Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and we laughed at him.
It doesn't matter.
I will say this:
Bring on the Celtics.
All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks so much for everybody that is listening on this Friday night or Saturday or over the weekend. We will be back with another episode Monday morning. Game 7 between the Sixers and the Celtics is on Sunday, so we will know by then who it is that the Miami Heat are facing.
Game 1 on Wednesday,
so
Game 2 on Friday, and then Game 3 here back at the Kaseya Center on Sunday. It'll be phenomenal. The Heat accomplishing history, doing it their way. No pun against New York there, but a fantastic series, and we're looking forward to seeing who's the next opponent for Miami on their quest for a 4th championship.